Thank you very much. And if you're watching us on January 8th, then you're watching us live. I just heard a while ago Trump give his, I guess, explanation for the wall, the need for the wall. And after that, I heard Schumer and Pelosi do a wonderful job of just saying, no, this is crazy talk. You missed that.
I did miss that on the way over here, where I had something going on. It's hard for me to sit there and listen to Donald Trump.
Yes.
It really is. I knew it was happening, but...
Yeah, you know, Moses,
hey,
thank you very much.
How are you? Hello, Caleb, how are you?
How are you? Once again, you were here last month. And, you know, I was talking the other day to a person, and I said, what they should have is an app on your phone that whenever you hear Donald Trump's voice coming over, it masks it, so you can't hear the darn voice, you know, but it's so scary for so many people.
Well, and the sad, they do have apps now where they can substitute a voice.
Yes, I'd like to
so
see that.
Maybe we could substitute...
Mickey Mouse? I mean, how about some creature, a duck or something?
Well, you know what the sad thing is, too, is that you could substitute any other voice for Donald Trump's and it would still sound imbecile. It would still sound... the words,
I mean, but white noise to drown them out. But anyway, our title of our show today is Up Against the Wall. That's appropriate.
Perfect.
Yeah,
very appropriate
for tonight.
Obviously, if you've been keeping track of the news, Donald Trump and the Democratic House and the Senate, they're at an impasse with the government shutdown, the Trump shutdown. Trump has claimed it as his own and would not place the blame on Nancy or Chuck.
I will take it on my shoulders. But then again, now he says it's a Democratic. It's a Schumer.
Schumer shutdown.
Yes.
Yes, right. Well, we're into week 3. No progress almost week 3.
No, you're right. No, this is the 18th day of the strike. And when it reaches 21 days, it will tie the longest strike that we've had. I mean, shutdown that we've had.
And you know, and the sad thing is too, is the ramifications of this shutdown.
Oh my gosh.
You know, the fact that he doesn't care about the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of federal workers is just amazing to me. And its audacity and its coldness, its cold-heartedness. You know,
I think they relish in how much agony they can stir up. And it was one of these articles, I think it was Vanity Fair, was the story was telling about how they didn't know for a long time how many people were being affected by the shutdown. That Trump just decided to do it. He didn't know and he didn't care. And now he says it might go on for months. You know, it's there was. Who was it? It was the Kim. Did you hear what the ex-Prime Minister of Canada said? He said he really is an MFer about Trump. This was recently. And
was that Trudeau or the guy that?
No, it was a woman.
A woman. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and what she was reacting to was a question asked of Trump, and Trump was asked, now, you know, how can you support these people that are laid off? They're not going to get any support. And Trump says, oh, yeah, we'll support them with a southern wall. Then they'll have that support. And at that point, she says, yeah, he really is an MFer.
Well, I mean, she's only stating what people in the American public already knows. I mean, recent polling is bringing Trump's favorability numbers down and down and down into the Paul Ryan range. You know, under 35%. I think I remember correctly. Paul Ryan actually he had an approval rating of 18% when he finally left the Speaker of the House position in the last Congress.
Should be a lot lower.
It should have been a lot lower, quite frankly. But I think Trump, you know, he's always going to have that base of 25 to 30% of the American public that, you know, idolizes the ground he talks on.
Get back on your medication, Trump supporters. Get back on your medication.
And it's unfortunate, too, you know, but we are starting, I think that 2 things are happening. You're either getting inured, you're getting immune or numb to the outrageousness of these, of what Trump and the Republicans are doing, or you're getting pissed, you're getting angry, and you're trying to fight back in any way that you can. And this is our little contribution to the fight back against Trumpism and this callousness towards government workers.
Well, you mentioned before that we shouldn't normalize this. We shouldn't, you know, keep this, understand this to be normal, because it's not. We have a Republican Party interested only in greedy goals. That is, getting as much money and as much power as they can. They don't believe in fair elections. We're seeing more and more. The state of Michigan and Michigan,
and Wisconsin,
right.
North Carolina.
Yeah, but they just want to fool with the rules, the laws, and change it so that you don't have a free election. They're just interested in money. They're supported, they're supporting their billionaire donors, and they will do whatever the donors want.
And what's the worst about it is that they're going against what the public and the voters actually do want. In both Wisconsin and in Michigan, Democratic governors were elected, and in both of those states, the Republican-led legislature, as a final act of defiance to the Democratic Party and to the voters, passed these laws that at midnight session that restrict the power of the governor to be able to do away with a lot of the egregious laws that they had passed just the year previous. So they're doing this to try to consolidate their power. They're doing this as a petty revenge against the Democratic Party. They're also doing this as a way to consolidate their power and to make it more difficult to get things done. And I'm just shocked at the pettiness of it all. And it's, once again, you either get numb to it or you get angry about it. And we've got a lot to get angry about, folks. Yeah,
well, it's breathtaking in its cynicism. I mean, I would not think of that, but then again, this is out of the Koch brothers playbook.
Yes.
And greed. They want to control everything. And they'd be very, hopeful that with a conservative Supreme Court, and it's pretty darn conservative now, Roberts is probably the most liberal of the Republicans on the court, but if they get one more person on the court, then it may be conservative for, decades. And and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, may you live a long time.
Does she need my kidney? I'm happy to donate it. That woman, I give her an A for toughness and tenacity, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, even though I did read that for the first time in her 25-year judicial career, she missed the opening remarks or the opening arguments of the Supreme Court session.
Yeah, she read them in her, I think, hospital room or room bed anyway, but she couldn't go in for that. Yeah, first time in 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing, that toughness of this person, this woman. And, have you happened to see that movie that came out about her?
RBG? No.
Yeah, there's that.
My wife and son loved it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that one. But there's a recent one that came out. It's Sexual Matters or something. It's all about whatever it is. Yeah. Gutsy lady.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the historical background to a lot of these pioneers of our process here, or even on the Supreme Court, you really don't know the backgrounds of a lot of these Supreme Court members. Yeah. If you start to go back to like the Earl Warren court, Warren, if I remember correctly, he was a failed presidential candidate for 3 or 4
Conservative
attempts.
Initially, yeah.
But then he ended up getting appointed to the Supreme Court, and he grew into it. He grew into it.
And I don't think too many. Well, maybe Roberts might grow into it, surprisingly enough. But I've
read an article where they're saying that he's trying to position himself to be that new central vote, that new moderate vote,
the other Kennedy kind of thing. But
Anthony Kennedy, right?
But once again, if Trump gets a chance to appoint another conservative Supreme Court justice, he's going to take it, and then devil take the hindmost. They're not. Right. For instance, one of the things that the Democrats are doing straight out of the gate is to focus on voting rights. Yes. And the Supreme Court is trying to chisel away at voting rights. And, we haven't had a big voting rights thing since, I think, 64, 65, I forgot the exact year. This would be a good time to have it. But if you have, our current Supreme Court is not interested in extending voting rights.
Well, they did kind of take them away in the sense that if I remember correctly, allowing the Voting Rights Act to expire in relation to the overview that they give to states to adhere to the Voting Rights Act. And so that's how states like Texas and Georgia and other states like that can get back to this whole voter suppression and get away with it.
Robert says we don't have these problems anymore. We don't have the voting problems anymore. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, it's standing out in the rain, and you say you're not getting wet anymore, so you throw your umbrella away. It's obviously those voting suppression techniques have been amplified, spread out, once again, by the Koch brothers. Seriously, if anyone has any comments about the presentation tonight, how it went, who you think did particularly well, please give us a call. Our number here, 503-650-0198. 503-650-0198. I think maybe ventilating and telling us how much you hate Trump would get it out of your system.
You know, if you are watching us live, give us a call, because I'm with Caleb. I'd really like to hear what you, the viewer, thought if you happen to see that speech by Trump. If you could sit there and watch it, and you saw some of the rebuttals as well, we'd like to get your input, and you can share it with us on live,
yes,
on air, by giving us a phone call at 503-650-0198. There's that topic. There's
lots. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What a terrific thing. So they say, you know, they're blaming you for dancing, right? I mean, in college, and she says, well, you know, she hates to tell people that even congresswomen dance too. She says, oh, Republicans are going to be so horrified when they discover that.
You know, what I think is amazing to me is the fear that the Republicans have, these old white men are having over this young, intelligent, vibrant, progressive congresswoman, new congresswoman.
I think she's terrifying. Marv, can you put on number 3, please? I think she's just terrifying. Oh,
there she is.
Isn't she scary? Moses, she's so scary.
Well, you know what she does? She epitomizes everything that the Republican Party has been trying to fight against for the last 30 years. A young minority, a young woman from a minority class advancing to the highest echelons of power in the United States.
Oh, my gosh.
God forbid. You know, and now that she is there, they realize that their little tenuous grip on power is slowly fading away because they're getting too old.
I hope so.
You know, and so people like Alexandria, like Congresswoman, or I always get it wrong as well. How do you pronounce her last name again? I'm sorry.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Cortez, yes, pardon me.
Yeah.
She epitomizes, in my mind, the future of politics. You may agree with her on her positions, or you may not agree with her, but you cannot deny the fact that she represents the future.
Also, you know, she does represent the future, but also she's incredibly smart.
Yeah.
She won a science contest and so on, too. Really, really bright kid. Goes off to Boston University, difficult school to get into. And try number 4, Marv. And she has a really quick Twitter, remember, in the House for the Republican Party.
Yes.
And she's criticized by him when she said, I want to raise the top marginal tax rate by up to 70%. She said that's where it used to be. And Scalia said, you want to tax all our money at 70%? You know, that's a really stupid thing to do. And the Republicans intentionally misrepresent what she's saying. And she says, oh, how'd you get so far and not understand the words top marginal tax rate?
Right.
I mean, it's like when she says the tippy top levels of people should get perhaps their everything over the $10 million taxed at a 70% rate, but only after the $10 million. So the top marginal tax rate is going to be $10 million, she thinks. I'm all for that.
Yeah, well, hey, keep in mind, back in the Eisenhower administration, before they started to mess around with these
92.
Tax cuts in in Reagan's.
No, not 92, I'm thinking. 92%. 92%.
Yeah. Oh, 92%. Yeah. Pardon me, I thought you meant the year 1992 in Clinton. Yeah. But yeah, the tax rate was much higher. And it was at a lower level, too. It was at like at $600,000. That's when that level was where that started to kick in at 70, 80, 90%. So it's not unknown for that high of a tax rate on profit to be enacted for the very wealthy. It's just that over the last 50 years, the very wealthy have
strangled.
They've
taken all the money.
They've taken all the money.
And even recently, too, this last $1 trillion giveaway, $1.5 trillion giveaway to the richest people by Ryan, who says, oh, we're so concerned about the deficit. Oh, no, you know, we're so concerned about the deficit. When he gets a chance, he shovels all this money to Republicans. And the debt now is like, I have some numbers here, but it's really increased 40%. I don't know.
And you know, the sad thing is, too, is that especially when it comes to Paul Ryan, here was a man that was 2 heartbeats away from the presidency, both as a vice presidential candidate and as Speaker of the House, who's third in line for the presidency. And he had a majority in his House, in his Congress. He had a majority in the Senate. He had a Republican president for 2 years before he left. And they only accomplished one major thing there in the last 2 years, and that was to pass a tax cut.
No, tax giveaway. Tax giveaway. Yeah.
Pardon me, tax giveaway.
Theft tax, yeah.
And so, you know, it kind of shows you his true colors and where he's really coming from.
Well, also,
I mean, you know, all these other things are happening, and they're giving money away to the rich.
He had, anyway, U.S. national debt increased $2 trillion since Donald Trump took office, new data show. $2 trillion. When he ran, he says, oh, you know, I'm going to tax people like me, you know. I'm not going to like the new taxes, but I don't have to. Rich people should be taxed more. Can he ever, like, take a breath without lying? I mean, in important ways. Also, Paul Ryan, if people may remember, he said he remembers back in college days at the Keggers and so on, too, when he was thinking about, you know, how to control the spending on Medicare, not Medicare, how to Social Security and other entitlement programs, you know, how to cut it back. So, I mean, that's my goal, to make sure people don't have supports, you know, take away their medicine, take away the...
Well, it's that whole Ayn Randian philosophy of I get what I get and you don't.
Right.
You know?
Libertarian, took a libertarian, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he had that philosophy all the way from college, and that's that paper that you're talking about. He was a real proponent of it even back then. I mean, I think I remember one of his college buddies talking about how he used to talk about that sort of thing at Keggers. You know? I mean, who talks about tax cuts and taking away from Medicare when you're in college like that?
I've never been drunk enough to do that.
I guess not.
Gee whiz, you know. And also, he doesn't have a heart. You know, his heart should be, right? I mean, no empathy for others. And I remember when the Sisters on the Bus read him the Riot Act about 6 years ago. And you remember the Sisters on the Bus? And they said he should join us, and look at what the needy really need, and you know, get off his high horse and just see how great the need is.
Right.
But Obama, of course, is once again on Thanksgiving. Well, on Christmas too Christmas was dishing food. I think Thanksgiving too. I mean, he does reach out and put his hands out and helps people. But.
Well, and it was an unannounced visit to that shelter down there in Washington D.C. that Obama did. He didn't make a big deal about it, you know. And when Ryan went to a homeless shelter during his run with Romney.
Yes.
They made a big deal about him washing some dishes, but he had gone in there. It was a completely staged event.
Right, and the dishes were already clean.
Right, he just started scrubbing ones that were already clean.
And so they didn't know what the heck was going on. But he's a liar. He's a liar, as Republicans are when they say, "Oh, we're here to help you." No, they're not. They're here to take your money, take your future, despoil the environment, because it increases the profits for billionaires and oil companies and so on. But folks like Cortez, just terrific. Marv, can you show 8? And let's see what 8 shows. This is just terrific picture of the new Democrats.
Is this all the new Congress people?
Yep. Well, not all of them, but there we are.
There we are, yeah.
And this is...
You know, I haven't felt that good about an election in a very long time.
Yes, oh my God, oh my God.
I think, you know, just considering the fact that when we went to bed that night, when we woke up, we had, in essence, won a majority in the House, and we knew that we had a majority in the House. No one knew that it was going to get to 40.
Yes.
You know, a majority of 40. That means it was a swing of 60.
And maybe 41 with North Carolina.
With North Carolina. Yeah. So
huge swing.
You know, and you look at the diversity in that crowd there, too. Not only just by gender, but by race. Yeah. And that's to me is really exciting. You know, I was watching C-SPAN when they were doing the swearing-in ceremonies for Nancy Pelosi. They did the vote for Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker of the House, and then they did the swearing-in ceremonies of all of the new members of Congress. And it was amazing to see in the well of the House all of these women and all of these all different races,
kids too,
children, and then you pan over to the Republican side, and it's all white men in black suits. I mean,
who don't clap for Nancy Pelosi?
Who won't clap on issues that they even agree with her on.
Right.
That's what's so sad about it. So yeah, that picture that we just saw of the new diversity, the new crowd in the new Congress, that gives me hope. And I think that there is enough anger, there's enough understanding of what is actually happening to this country by Trump and by the Republican majority in the Senate now, and by the rich, you know, and their lobbying, to actually start to make a difference here. And I think in 2 years, if we can remember this and we can keep up this kind of energy and excitement and desire and anger.
I like your focus on anger, too, being pissed off, you say. I mean, it motivates people. If we are not pissed off at this time at these Republicans, we're not paying attention. Climate change alone is, I mean, just, you know, we got to get our act in gear or we're not going to have any gear left.
Well, it's like with this poll. I just want to go back to the poll that we talked about earlier in the show. The opinion poll, which ran from January 1st to January 7th, found that 51% of adults believe Trump deserves most of the blame for the shutdown. That's up 4 percentage points from a similar poll that ran from the 21st to the 25th of December. Once again, I think that people are starting to figure this out. So. You know, I know
you're right.
I'm optimistic, but I just remember some of these other past shutdowns where there was ambiguity about who was really at fault for doing the shutdown.
When Trump says, I'll shoulder the responsibility, call it the Trump showdown. Shutdown. Now he's saying no. Someone else's shutdown.
Exactly. It was hilarious. And you know that clip of him when they had that meeting with Nancy, with the Speaker of the House and with the Senate Minority Leader, Schumer. And with Pence, our vice president, sitting there
was that guy alive or was he a doll? He didn't move at all.
He was in fantasy land because he wasn't moving.
And someone said he had a 500-yard stare. You know, he was not looking at what was going on. You had Trump in this taller chair with his legs, you know, spread wide and masculine. You know, I'm going to show you my whatever it is, and just in a power stance.
But
boy, Pelosi and Schumer played him like a fiddle.
I mean, I don't think they thought it was going to go that well. You know, I mean, I love the little meme that has been created of her walking out of the Oval Office, and she has this red jacket on, and she's putting her sunglasses on.
I like that.
And they've turned that into this meme of "Don't mess with me," you know, kind of a badass, if you will.
I like that.
Meme.
Spy kind of a thing,
Right. I mean, and it's well deserved considering the amount of flack that Pelosi was taking prior to that meeting, whether or not she was good enough to be the leader of the House.
Yeah, well, Democrats have their own form of messing things up. I mean, for a while, we heard about how a lot of people didn't want Pelosi to be Speaker. You don't want to be Speaker? She's the talented person. She helped organize the representatives come back and Democratic representatives, but, you know, we don't want her to be Speaker, and she has to promise not to be a Speaker after 4 years. She said, okay, she can promise that. You know how old she is? Any guesses?
I think she's at least in her early 70s.
She's 78.
78.
Yeah, I mean, if I have 1/10 her energy when I get, oh my gosh. But anyway, she's terrific. She's really focused, and I'm just glad she did that. But I mean, she accepted the chairmanship, and she also can count votes. She can count people, and just a wonderful. Can you put up a number one? Let's see what we have for number one. Oh,
there you go.
That's a Republican nightmare. I tell you, that's a Republican nightmare.
That's one thing they didn't want to have to see or deal with, and now they are dealing with both.
Look at her smile, too. Hey, I've got this. This ain't for cracking nuts here. Or maybe it is.
It is. You know, you've got to give that woman her proper respect. I saw a clip of Nancy Pelosi as a newly elected congresswoman from San Francisco area back in the late 80s, and she was in a AIDS awareness walk in San Francisco. And even then, back then, she was working for LGBTQ equity and more funding for AIDS research and to help the community. And, you know, I think so many people in the current here and now forget what kind of a warrior she has been over the last 40 years.
Let's just review the bidding a bit. And Reagan and Bush after him sort of pretended AIDS was not a problem. I mean, it took forever for them to pay for AIDS research, the AIDS treatment, and they didn't want to mention the word AIDS at all in public. I mean, that went on for many years, for a decade, and even Bush later after that downplayed it completely. But I mean, such misery, such fear, such you know, unnecessary. If the thing about Trump too, if you look at Trump, well, I don't know, look at Obama, and he comforts people. Hey, let's, you know, we're there for you. We'll be there. You know, you can count on us. We'll do it. Trump, you have good luck with that. I mean, if Trump came near you, he'd try and reach in your pocket and take all the money you have and, you know, kick you off the curb if he could, if it made him a cent.
You know, quite frankly, his latest actions with the wall and with the migrants at the southern border and his disdain for them, and then his attitude towards the children that were killed by ICE and by our own border, the ones that were in custody, the children that were in custody, that just confirms for me he does not care about anybody else besides himself. Well, I mean, he really doesn't care about the common person.
I was reading this thing. You may have read it too. That one of his supporters was quoted as saying, this shutdown is not hurting the people that should be hurt enough. That is, people that should be hurt, like Democrats and so on too, they weren't feeling enough pain. And, you know, I think Trump has that attitude, too. He's got to crank up the pain. So I don't think he's apathetic. I think he eagerly wants people to hurt. Right. I mean, he wants them to hurt.
Well, I don't know if he wants them to hurt as much as he doesn't really care what happens to them if they're a part of his negotiating tactic. Well, you know, I mean,
closing down the government,
for his own selfish, to allow him to be able to save face. Mm-hmm. That's purely what the wall is about, it seems to me, you know, because he made those promises during the campaign. He uses it as a cudgel against the Democrats, and he is able to make money off of it from donations from his base.
Nieto, the president of Mexico, Trump asked him, can't you please say you're going to pay for the wall? You don't have to, but just say you're going to do it. And Nieto said no. And Fox before that said F no. You know, we're not going to pay for your effing wall. Vicente Fox before Nieto. And even, you know, recently in one of the meetings with Schumer and with Pelosi and other folks from the Democratic Party, Trump said that he didn't want to give up on the idea of the wall because it would make him look weak. I don't want to look weak. I mean, gee whiz, that's supposedly in the business deals that he has had too in public. He wants the people that he's negotiating with to allow him to say, I made $150 on that deal, even though he didn't. But he just wants the praise for that. He just wants it.
I guess so. And it's really frustrating, you know, when you start to think about it, that how many people's lives are being affected because of his stubbornness. Yeah. I mean, you know, not beyond government workers. I mean,
right.
And let's face it, Caleb. I mean, this is the ultimate goal of the Republican Party, who wanted to shrink the government. Grover Norquist wanted to drown it in a bathtub.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to kill it. I just want to shrink it to a side where we can drown it in the bathtub.
Right. And
he's a millionaire lobbyist, by the way. K Street.
Of course he is. Of course he is. You know, and it's the idea that they make the services, they stop the funding, they make the service that's being provided so bad that people can complain about it, and then they can point to that as a reason that we don't need it.
Right. Well, for Social Security, for instance, a lot of the customer service lines, people you talk to on the phone, their jobs are gone, which makes it more difficult to find out what's going on in Social Security. And then that makes people say, oh, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, because the Republicans have stripped it away. That's why.
Well, that was the same thing with the ACA and with the health care, as far as going onto the website and healthcare.gov and getting coverage during that short period. First they reduced the amount of time that you had to be able to sign up, and then they reduced the amount of employees that were processing the claims. You know, they made it as difficult as they could to suppress enrollment, which is shocking to me, that they would play with people's lives like that.
Yes. Yeah, they toying. Yeah, there's that great line from Shakespeare about how we are like flies to wanton boys. They kill us for their sport. I mean, they don't care. They do not care. And yeah, I think that's really true. Although I do think that he really wants to be cruel. I mean, the more screams he can get, you know, the better off. I think he feels are doing. And you know, the poor little kids on the border, and also the migrants coming in, held in cages, as it were. And this is it. Food stamps for 38 million low-income Americans would face severe reductions, you know, because of this. Food stamps for 38 million low-income Americans. I mean, who the hell does that? I agree with you. I mean, who the hell does that? $140 billion in tax refunds are at risk of being frozen or delayed. And, you know, Trump, his people also said, you know, for those who are laid off, they suggest that people can go to their apartment managers and say, hey, you know, I can do plumbing for you. I can do house repair for you.
Barter your labor for rent.
Yeah, his people, too, say, you know, if you miss a paycheck, not a big deal. You know, everyone, you know, you got enough money to do it. These are people who have never been poor, who have never worked at, you know, basic jobs.
You know what just came to my mind? Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake. Yeah. Let the commoners eat cake. You know, and it's the same sort of an attitude that we have ours and we don't care about you. And look what happened in the French Revolution, you know, and I think I doubt that we're going to have that type of a revolutionary reaction to what's going on, but by golly, we could have an electoral reaction to it. And that's, in our beautiful republic, that's the only way that we can affect change. That's one of the few ways that we can affect change is by who we vote in to represent us. And, you know, let's tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, that beautiful picture of the diversity, the diverse 115th Congress, you know, the new Congress people. I mean, that's how you deal with people like Trump. You work hard to get people like that elected.
You mean the people, but not Trump. I mean, and also I like fire in the belly. I mean, the idea, some people, I mean, compromise with a guy like Trump, it's like a lamb compromising with a snake. It just doesn't work out, you know. Right. Let me just say who we are. We are Progressive Radio and TV, and we're here the first Tuesday of the month from 8 to 9 p.m., and we're here at Willamette Falls Media Center, and I think maybe we have, there we are. If you're interested in finding out more about the opportunities here, maybe putting on a show or learning about camera techniques or podcasting, please consider Willamette Falls Community Media Center. You're 1101 Jackson Street, Oregon City, 97045, and the number is 503-650-0275, the nicest of people. Thanks, Marv. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Steve. Yes. Anyway, thank you so much. You know, let's get back to our topic of today, too. Could you show 06, Marv? What is this? Is this a safer America? Will this bring about a safer America?
The wall.
The wall, yeah.
Well, now, you know, the kind of wall that Trump has been wanting is changed. It's evolved. Seeing, you know,
more than he has.
More than he has. Yeah. It's gone from a concrete structure that would be going across the southwestern border, the southern border, to steel slats. Let's not forget the steel slats.
And also the pokey things on the top and the spires and so on too.
Oh, there we go. There's an example of some of the steel slats. Actually, that's probably existing fencing that they have down there in California. Who knows where that's at? But I
like Nancy Pelosi, who says, you know, he's put up with a beaded curtain at this point, yes, you know, if he did that. But yeah, and also Trump says, well, the wall is built. Who knows what the hell he says from day to day. Right. But he has said quite a few times, well, the wall is built. You know, you know, it's like Mexico's paying for it and so on too. His mouth opens and lies come out.
You know, what he would be able to do is if he does get any money and he's able to put up a section that is 5 miles long in any length, he's going to point to that in the next election cycle and say, look, I have achieved what I have wanted to. I've made our country safer. Here's your wall. You know, and I'm so reminded of so many examples in history of how walls did nothing to protect. They did not. They failed the original intention, and that was to protect. The Maginot Line.
In World War I, impregnable line. No one can beat it. But the Germans.
This was in France and parts of Belgium, and in World War I to prevent the Germans from coming into France.
Wall here.
They put up a big wall and a big front, and so what did the Germans do? They go around it. You know, so and that's basically the logic of going around this wall.
Also, let's in terms of.
And you know what the funny thing is, though, too, is that there's so much technology out there right now. If they put some of that money that they're asking for into true border security measures that were high tech, that were modern, that were realistic. We could probably get to that point of security that he talks about, you know, and if we're not there, you know, already.
No, Schumer was interested in high-tech technology that can examine vehicles coming through and determine whether or not it is likely that they have drugs on them. The major way that drugs get into the country is being smuggled in cars and in transportation vehicles coming up from Mexico or coming in ships and in airplanes. But the major thing is in cars traveling up from the south.
Right. And so you put more money into the port of entry security. Yep. You're able to reduce the amount that actually gets in.
Immigrant families from Nicaragua, El Salvador do not come up with drugs in their back. Right. I mean, and how dare Trump make such light of the incredible butchery going on in these countries that Reagan destabilized. Iran-Contra affair, anyone? I mean, with that, they started wars going in Nicaragua, and that's broadened out to El Salvador. And these people are, you know, these poor folks as a result of American instigation. And Trump even is reducing the payments to these countries that were put in place by previous presidents to stabilize the countries. And Trump says, oh, we don't have to do that. I mean, it's like, how cruel can you be? Well, you can be pretty darn cruel.
You can.
And also, it's in the long run, it's just to the huge detriment of our country. I mean, we could, if we could stabilize our countries, reduce the crime in their countries, then the people would not come here in nearly as large a number.
Well, you know, and Trump is at the point where you don't know what to believe with him when he says something, in the sense that, you know, he talked about how he's going to pull the soldiers out of Syria, and now we're getting backtracking already from that from that promise. Even though, you know, I'm kind of confused, ambivalent on that one, because, I mean, I can understand what could happen. That power vacuum could occur if all of the United States troops are leaving Syria because the Russians are backing Assad, and the Kurds, the Turkish Kurds, who have been one of the most
major allies
both
years.
In Iraq and in Syria, are going to get just decimated by the Russians and by Assad in Syria. That's the son. And so, you know, I understand that as far as the power vacuum that could occur there. Now, having said that, you know, we do have a lot of troops over in that neck of the woods that not necessarily might not be in Syria, but they're in other parts of the world close to the Middle East. I can see the appeal of that particular one.
You know,
Let's just put it that way.
I want us to get our troops out in a measured process. We don't, we're not going to hopefully tell the world that we're going to leave tomorrow, which is what Trump did in essence.
Well, that's exactly right.
And he wouldn't listen to any of the military people saying, you know, if you want to withdraw, let's do it in a careful and gradual process so we don't expose the Kurds to Turkish troops, to you know, the Syrian troops, and to Russian. You know, just, it's awful. I mean, they trusted us. Well, one of the things that, you know, if Trump is such an erratic person, you cannot trust him at all. Even that, remember at one point the wall, he said, no, okay, we'll go along with the spending thing. Then he hears from Ingram, I think, and by Rush Limbaugh and you know, several other right-wing wackos. And so he says, oh no, we're going to go for the wall now because people called him weak or something. He's such a smarmy individual.
It's a proven fact that the night after they had made the agreement, and it had passed unanimously in the Senate, everybody had agreed to fund the government beyond this, you know, before this current shutdown occurred. That night, Trump, on Fox and Friends, that next period of 24-hour period, they hammered Trump on that for compromise. You're weak. Exactly. You need, and that's what predicated the withdrawal, that need to adhere to the Fox propaganda or something. I don't know.
But it's such weakness when embarrassment, you know, of this thing, it causes you to ignore the lives that will be lost. I mean, the great harm that can be done. I mean, you know, I wouldn't mind being embarrassed any old day, but Trump is an odd sort of person. And yeah, I mean, he really did respond fully with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible stuff. Let's see what else do we have any other pictures? Yeah, let's go for picture number 2. Here's a queen walking down the hall. Who was that queen? I wonder who that can be.
Number 2?
Yep. There she is. Yep, she's regal and walking down the hall.
Well, there I am on the left.
That's you on the left? Oh, that's not you. Oh, you last week. You know, in terms of the wall, why don't you go, Marv, to number 10, okay? And this one says, this cartoon of Trump, I had to take my contact lens off to read it, but it says, there we are. I want my wall. If I don't get my wall, I'll take my government and go home. I want my wall. If I don't get my wall, I'll take my government and go home. Gee whiz. I mean, regardless of the destruction to our society and the government and, everything else, to the belief in the American experiment, right? You can't trust America to keep its word. That is just great. I mean, awful.
Well,
Oh, pardon me.
We have a phone call.
Okay. Caller, thank you so much for calling. Where are you calling from this evening?
Portland.
Where are you calling from, I'm sorry?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, great, yeah. Did you watch Trump and so on?
Yes.
What did you think, sir?
Well, this is the thing. Everything is on the United States and Trump, or whoever is going to be the next president. Okay. What is the other countries doing to help these people stay in their own countries? They blame everything on the United States. Okay.
Oh, no, you're talking people who came up from El Salvador and Nicaragua?
Anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, anywhere. Also, why doesn't Mexico do the same thing as the United States? Put some troops on their border side, because there's nobody taking care on their border side. It's all United States, and it's all Trump. It's all United States.
I'm actually, the country of Mexico has been providing a lot of shelter and a lot of security to those migrants, more so than we have. I mean, the idea is that prior to Trump, if you were a migrant, you were allowed to
seek asylum. And that's what our law says too. And this is a UN charter, that if people approach our border, they're allowed to get into it while they declare the reasons for seeking asylum, and they go through an orderly process. What's happened under Trump is he's sealed up the ports of entry. There's one bridge, a terrible bridge, where people have been pooping on for weeks at a time. And, our laws say that they can apply for asylum at the ports of entry, and Trump has dammed up those ports of entry.
Okay, can I say something else?
Sure.
I lost my job to illegals.
Okay. What kind of work did you do, sir?
I was working in the restaurant as a dishwasher.
Okay.
And they let me go because they told me they had to keep the immigrants because they didn't know any English, or they didn't have.
And when did that happen, sir? May I ask?
When I was 65.
Okay. So that about 5 years ago or something, a couple of years ago?
No, it was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
That's unfortunate. And you know what you're identifying, sir, is you're identifying the true culprit here, and that is businesses that will hire people, undocumented workers, because they're less expensive. And be it in the agricultural, be it out on the fields, or be it in a restaurant.
Do you think it's right?
No, I don't think it's right.
No, sir, but what Moses is saying is that the fault of that is with the business owners, and when there are prison sentences that they should face, and large fines that they should face.
There should be.
Yeah, but anyway, for a long time under Reagan, he opened the borders and he let a lot of people come in and did not enforce the laws regarding.
Can I say something else?
Sure.
If they would stop hiring illegals in United States,
right, I agree.
They wouldn't come here because nobody's going to hire them. But I'm going to tell you something. We're living in a corporate thing that those people are making money out of these people. That's why they hired these people legally.
Sir, you and I and Moses are absolutely in agreement on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely in agreement on that. Now there's not that many illegals that are being hired in positions because with Trump kicking the people out, and there's been more scrutiny about.
Can I tell you, okay, and a lot of businesses hire lots. I mean, talking about a whole bunch of motels and restaurants. That's what they have, illegals.
Well, I think Moses, I'm sure, and I and you would agree that every business owner that does that, a person who hires those, people who are not in this country legally, who are not allowed legally to work, they should be fined. They should be put in prison.
Right. Okay, but but they don't do that now.
Right.
Why doesn't the IRS do anything about it?
Well, it's a lot of it, unfortunately, is a Republican greed. I think some Democrats, feel sorry for maybe some of them, but it's a lot of it. The Republicans stopped enforcing those laws.
Okay, can I say something else?
Sure.
I come from a border town in Texas.
Uh-huh.
And people that live way out here, like in Oregon,
Yep.
North Dakota, South Dakota, they don't know what's going on in the border towns.
Well, so I got a question for you, sir, okay? The question is this. Every United States representative whose territory is on the border, every one of them is opposed to a border wall. Every single representative, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, if their district is along the border, they oppose a border wall. So, I mean, I agree with you that there's a huge problem, and we have to do something about it. We have to make it safe, and, we have to control our borders more. This is not going to do it. It's an expensive waste of money, I think. And also another thing that it does, and clearly it does, it jams a finger in the eyes of Hispanics, Mexicans, other people trying to get into the country and saying, you're not worth it. I'm going to make it so tough that, if you die in the desert or something like that, that's okay with us.
And that's a really, and just my 2 cents here real quick.
Okay, can I say something else?
No, let Moses just speak for a second.
I was just going to say this, sir. I remember back even in the Kennedy administration, they were starting to talk about how to make the immigration process easier for undocumented workers to be able to come into the United States, to be able to fulfill those types of jobs. My point is that this has been an issue for the last 50 years plus. Now, I think we have come up with one aspect, one solution to it.
DACA or something?
Putting the screws to the businesses, making it so that the business does not have an incentive to hire undocumented workers solely to pay them less for cost. But we also have to set up some sort of a way to make sure that they come in legally, that they are accounted for, that they do what they come here to, they say that they're coming here to do, and then they go home. I mean, I remember my mother is Hispanic and my grandparents were migrant workers. And, they would come up and they would work the fields and then they would go back to Mexico. It was a seasonal thing. And so, we've got some work to do.
Well,
and I'm hoping that the Republican Party, or at least the new Congress people, the new legislators that we vote in, will start to really get to the meat of this. But a wall's not going to solve it.
No. But, sir, we have to move on. But tell us your last thought. You had a thought you wanted to share.
Can I say something else?
Sure. No, that's what I'm saying. Yep.
Yeah, please.
Please say something.
Okay. Like all these people, they can come legally if they go to the system. And also, who's going to help all these people? As a United States citizens, it's so hard for us, like for me. I'm going to be 73 years old. Mm-hmm. How can these people get all free Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps?
They don't.
And as a citizen, don't get anything.
They don't get any of those things. Sir, they don't get food stamps. They don't get Medicaid.
Yes, they do. I know a lot of people.
If they caught by the police, they're going to be investigators would be in a world of hurt. But
that's the thing.
No, but they don't. A lot of it is false stories spread by Fox and Republicans. I mean, they're lying to you. They really. I mean, the immigrants of this country do not have a gravy train. They really don't.
I do know so because I know people that get in food stamps.
Oh, if so, they're lying. Then they're misrepresenting themselves. Why don't you turn them in?
I'm not a law person.
You're not a what?
And the people are giving away the food stamps. Those offices.
You know what? Once again, if we cannot have zero bad things happening in any system, some people are going to do a few bad things, but Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those are really tightly governed programs, and the fraud that goes on with them is very little. Anyway, sir, thank you so much for calling. I really appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The man makes some good points.
Yeah, he does, sure.
He made a very good point there, you know, and I think that's, it's easy to talk about the issue of the wall and what it represents.
In the abstract.
In the abstract. What he was talking about was down on the ground level and
With
the
him,
effect
yeah.
of it, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
And I appreciate that very much, you know, and it also speaks to some of the potential resentment that people can have when they hear these falsehoods, falsehoods, right. But that doesn't negate the need. That doesn't negate the need for a better legislative approach to this.
I think the Democrats, one of the things that they want to do is have the migrant workers come in here and then go back to the country. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and certainly a bunch of farms around the country need migrant workers.
Sure. Here in Oregon, our agricultural system was built on the backs of migrant workers.
Washington State, too, Georgia, you know, so much of the world. And even Republican governors are saying, you know, we have to have migrant workers come in here, and they're not going to stay, and they're not going to do jobs in offices necessarily, but the work that they need is necessary for them.
Right. And I have no problem with that, but you know, I find it ironic that, you know, my great-grandparents were migrant workers, and I like to think that because of them, I am here, and in that sense, I like to think I'm a fine, upstanding citizen of the community.
You are, sir.
You know, and the point is that you can never tell. I mean, you can't just put a category on somebody or you know, a description of somebody like an illegal. These are not, and I hate that term, illegal.
I know. I used it myself. Sorry about that.
I know it's illegal immigrants. It's really easy because it's like they use it as a pejorative. You know, it's like how they use the word, oh, he's the Democrat Party. They use the word Democrat as a pejorative.
Rather
no, it's
than
the Democratic Party. Right, right.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Okay, I'm going to call it out.
Newt Gingrich said in the 90s, never use the word Democrat when you can, in addition to that, link the word negative word to it, like traitorous, lazy, uncaring, and so on.
I remember reading that, yes.
Never say Democratic or Democrat. Always put a slur on it every time. And that really coarsened the culture. It also was pretty effective in unfortunately, electing more Republicans.
Unfortunately, because it was the first time that anybody had shown such basic disdain and disrespect for in political debate. Discussion, public discussion.
Systematic,
like yes.
unending.
Right.
Well, it's sort of like, and that led up finally to Mitch McConnell denying Obama the Supreme Court seat of Merrick Garland, you know, for, geez, such a long time, and just in opposition to every custom before then, but just truly remarkable. Yeah. Can we go one more cartoon here, and that's 09? I think 09 is kind of fun. And this is, so he's in Germany. You guys in Berlin had a terrific wall. Oh yeah, remember Reagan's tear down this wall? Yeah, that's certainly an autocratic regime, Hitler and so on, too, building the wall. And then, well, the Russians building the wall.
You know what I find ironic about the wall, and you use that comparison, is that look what happened to East and West Germany after the wall came down. It's turned into, in less than 30 years, an economic powerhouse. Because they started to embrace the differences, not separate. And the wall, because the wall had been torn down, people could come together and collaborate. Same thing with the wall that we're talking about on the southern border. I mean, not wall. Why do we need a wall when we have all of this opportunity to improve our country? I mean, our country was built by immigrants, you know, and the fact that we would disregard that and ignore it.
Well, the xenophobia.
Out of fear,
right.
Yes.
I mean, it's drummed up xenophobia, and that helped, like Trump, you know, this very bizarre 2016. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you afraid, or you know, and coming down the escalator, you know, the rapists, murderers, drug dealers, and I'm sure some maybe are fine people.
Right.
I mean, it's just ladled the hatred for people of different.
Well, we're going to look back in 30 years, political historians are going to look back at the strategy that Trump used and just be absolutely amazed that the social structure allowed him to say all of that, let alone have it be effective and to have basically convinced a simple minority or a large minority of the public to vote for him.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we're going to be looking back at it in 40, 50 years with our heads ashamed.
Well, I don't, but then again, it shows how the rules also were so easily destroyed by 30%, 40% of the American people, that they would say that they would rather be, rather that Putin was in power rather than Hillary Clinton. You go, and that is Fox News. Right. A lot of these people, the first thing they listen to in the morning to the last thing at night they listen to is Fox News. Right. Or in cars, you listen to right-wing radio. There's really, Tom Hartman and several other liberals on the progressives on radio are very, very rare. You can go across the country and listen to Sean Hannity, pardon me, you know, over and over and over again, and no liberal progressives. We have to find some way to have much more progressive talk, much more progressive TV.
I got to share the story real quick. There's been this latest thing lately where you go into a gym or you go into a McDonald's or some sort of a store where they have Fox News up on their TV. You've gone in, if you live on the West Coast or on the East Coast, you've had that happen. And so what they do, what you do is you request the channel changer, and you block out Fox News. You can use it. It's kind of a surreptitious, under the radar,
but you're doing
act
God's
of
work.
defiance.
You're doing God's work, Moses. God's work.
From stopping these people from having to watch Fox News while they eat their dinner.
One of my friends did that recently at a gym. Well, someone said, "Can I change the channel?" Television set. She said, "Yes, anything but Fox." Yeah. It's like, it's the hatred that comes out. I mean, the lies. I mean, you want to challenge them, but.
And, you know, and that, unfortunately, is the whole strategy behind that kind of hate talk.
You know, our show tonight was up against the wall. Yeah. And we saw the wall, and thanks, Mark, for showing us pictures of the wall, and also our representatives. But the time is running out. Anything new that's coming up that we should keep an eye on, Mark?
Keep an eye for the campaign finance reform proposal from Governor Kate Brown. Look for that over the next 30 days. She is actually going to make a proposal to enact true campaign finance reform with contribution caps. It'll be interesting to see what she proposes.
Yep, and you had mentioned that last time, so I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that Governor Brown may surprise us. And this now that the Democrats have a supermajority in Salem, we might actually be able to get some campaign finance reform, some contribution caps, and
clean up the state a bit, and maybe know where hidden money is going, dark money, limited, and so on too.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for watching, and we are here the first Tuesday of the month, 8 to 9 p.m. Progressive Radio on TV, and thank you so much once again.
Oh, thank you, Caleb. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.